All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy that you guys have joined us tonight for part three of our four-part book series focused on the book, The Guide to Community Policing 3.0 by my good friend Dalton Price. And he's here with us today to help us talk about some issues that we are just have been discussing. So, for those of you who haven't been here, I'm here to catch you up a little bit. So, part one, we talked about coptics versus optics, how we see the police and how the police see its residents that it protects. And sometimes it doesn't look the same. We're working on bettering that relationship, hence why we're having this discussion this evening. Last week, we talked about cultural competency, how we all have biases and that we need to address them, acknowledge them, and then see how we can move forward and bettering our relationships, knowing that there is a bias and that we can move forward. But tonight, part three, I hope you're ready. We are talking about thinking outside of the box. Because if you do the same thing the same way every time, guess what? You're going to get the same response. And that's not what we want. We don't want to have discussions after discussions and we constantly are doing the same thing. That's not what we're here for. We're here for change. And the change must start within ourselves. We change ourselves and then we can talk to our neighbors if we're like I'm the resident. And we can talk to our neighbors and see how we can be better in the community to help the police. And then as the police officers, they have to change how they do business as well. And it starts from the top down, it starts bottom up, everywhere. Everyone has to do what needs to be done to make changes. So that's what we're talking about tonight, thinking outside of the box. So on with me is our author, Dalton Price of the book, once again, The Guide to Community Policing 3.0. And I want you to introduce yourself to our guests and we can move forward.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Linda, for having me again. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and the other folks who are joining in. My name is Dalton Price. I'm a retired lieutenant from the Patterson Police. I retired after 25 years. I worked in the Internal Affairs Division. Community policing is one of my biggest claims to fame. I like community policing because you get to talk to the people. You get to find out what are the people looking for? What do they need from you? And I think that's a very important part of the conversation. When you talk about protecting and serving, you have to know what the service is that the person needs.
Correct.
And if you don't know what that service is, you can't provide it for them. And from the police standpoint, sometimes I guess we assume what service the person is looking for or what they need, but we never asked. And if you take the time to ask the question in any relationship, what is it that you need from me?
Exactly.
You'll be surprised at the answers you get.
Mm,
So that was one reason for writing the book, because I understood community policing. I understood the importance of having a relationship with people. And I had to look back at the relationships that I built with people to realize how important those relationships were. I didn't set out to build relationships. It kind of happened. And then looking backwards, you see how it developed and how important it was.
okay. And each week that we've been talking, the one thing that's been standing out for me is listen, listen, and then listen again. If we don't listen to one another, whether you're a police officer, whether you are the residents in which the people that they serve, if we're not listening, then we're not moving. We have to provide solutions. And hence, we're having this conversation tonight. And the last two nights, we've had these conversations about moving forward and doing and finding active ways and that we can do. It can be something small, something big, but we have to start. That's the one thing we do have to do is start. So, and one thing that we have been doing, thinking outside of the box, we have one of my good friends, Dyson Haley. He's on tonight, and I would like, hey Dyson, like him to talk about what we've been doing. He is the founder of Deaf Advocacy Group in New Jersey, and he will speak on that a little bit. And we have been doing signing with the cops. I saw a program in which he was doing it with a group, and I really was attracted to what was happening. And I wanted it for my county. So we connected, we talked about it, and we started doing it in Passaic County. So Dyson, if you can unmute and tell everyone about what we've been doing?
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good, good.
Good. As my friend Linda just has spoken, and my other friend Lieutenant, and then I also got my partner in crime, Sergeant Lamar Towns. He's on it too. It's a collaborative effort that we do. This comes a couple of years ago. Let me start back a little bit before that. This was always been a passion of mine. If you may not know, I am hard of hearing. I wear a hearing aid. I'm using my special device right now for closed caption to pick up everything that's being said on transpired right now. And I'm looking at everybody's pictures on their facial expressions to know what they're saying and doing at this time. And those over the block, I can't see you, but it's okay. But what happened was this happened to me internally, personally. I was in college. I was maybe my freshman year of college. I was visiting one of my college roommates. And I see your face now. It just came on. One of my college friends. I went to go visit, and I got off the bus, and it was in a very prestigious neighborhood. And being a black man, 6'3", walking through, I saw the police car roll past, and he made a U-turn. And at the same time, I was like, okay, my hearing aid batteries just died. So, mind you, at that time, I just lost a huge chunk of percentage of my hearing in my right ear. So right now I'm wearing the hearing aid here. So my hearing aid battery, so I'm going in my bag looking. Police officer said, hey, what are you doing? What's your name? I told him my name. He said, well, you fit the prescription of something. At the same time, I said, officer, can you give me 1 second? My hearing aid battery. I said, no, I'm going to have to detain you because you look like somebody. A friend of mine knew I was coming. I was not too far from them. And the police, cuffed me. His parents came and like, what's the problem? What did he do? Or he looked like, no, he didn't. He just got off the bus. You know what I mean? He was in constant communication. It wasn't him. You got the wrong guy. But coming to find out his parents was the town's attorney. You know what I mean? Representing. So he came and it was like, hey, get those cuffs off of this young man. This is like a son to me. So ever since then, I was like, okay, I was trying to tell him, let me put my hearing aid batteries, and he refused. And I said, don't cuff me behind me. You're giving me up my rights for me to sign. So, and he cuffed me behind. So after all is said and done, something struck with me. And after that moment, I hated cops for a long period of time until I met Sergeant Lamar Towns. We was a part of an organization called the New Jersey Black Deaf Advocacy. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to give back to the organization in a way to be able to do community service. I'm not in for all the parties. I'm not in for all of that hype and all of that, but I'm about giving, service of advocacy. So lo and behold, I met Lamar at a barbecue prior to it. He is a police officer. So he was learning signing. So we got to talk, and I'm like, another cop, whatever. But he was like really interested, and he was like, he was traveling to New York to go to sign language class and paying the person. Mm-hmm. And where I said, hey, dude, I'm giving free classes. Come with me. Just jokingly, didn't know that he was going to come because he already established, a relationship with that individual going to New York every weekend to learn sign language. To save him a trip, we both live in New Jersey. So we began the friendship, and I say, hey, I asked him questions, say, hey, how many officers are there that know sign language? Mm-hmm. And to come to find out, there's only maybe 1% out of the New Jersey Police Department in the state of New Jersey that know sign language. Mm-hmm. And so we got to talk, and I said, hey, dude, let's do a collaboration, signing with the cops. He was like, yeah, man. I said, but where will we start? How will we do? I say, just ask me questions if I get pulled over. We begin that scenario. I said, all right, we got that, Pat. Mm-hmm. Give me another scenario. How do we communicate? What if this scenario, I'm hard of hearing, but just imagine if I was fully deaf, can't hear nothing. Mm-hmm. So we began to do different scenarios, and we did it in Jersey City in Hudson County. And we had maybe about 90 officers that we trained that weekend. Mm-hmm. It was powerful. The officers was learning from Hudson County, and it was like, okay, we good. We did that. We got legislators involved. That was great, but it wasn't to where we needed. So we began to go. Linda approached me and she said, hey, I think we need to do it in my town.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Okay. Just before that, we just had mutual conversation. There was an uproar. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago, a young man that was walking past a police officer and he got arrested and said, oh, he's deaf mute, he's deaf mute. But if you understand the story behind the story, he flicked a cigarette on a police officer. You may not see that video because the media cut that stuff out. But if you really take a look at that portion of that, that's a deadly weapon. Someone throwing something at you, that's a fire. You know what I mean? You should get arrested.
Right.
So he got arrested, but at the same token, Dalton was the lieutenant at the time. He needed some advice. He called me. He said, hey, the deaf community's in an uproar. I need your help. I said, I'll be up there. Let's work the situation out. We literally sat down and dialogue with the mayor's office, the police department, and literally seized to calm that piece down. And then that's what it's about, peace, if people can understand it. So, and then lo and behold, we wound up going into the police academy. And our first year, we did about 160 law enforcement from different municipalities from the state of New Jersey. So even though they was housed at the Passaic Community Police Academy, and we did the training scenarios and we did everything we did with them, and they learned the tools. So, and that same meeting, we had the Democratic chairman, I think his name is John, if I'm not mistaken, if you can correct me.
John Curry.
Yeah, John. And he said him and I had a meeting and we began the dialogue going even deeper with Assemblywoman Siobhan Sumpton of the Paterson area and a couple other legislators. So lo and behold, my personal assemblyman, Nick Chevalotti, he gave me a call and said, Tyson, I need to meet with you. You're doing some stuff. I need to meet with you. And lo and behold, all of that's been going. We've been going back up to the police academy, been doing the teaching, ongoing. So it's been like an ongoing thing. So we have signing with the cops in Essex County. We did it at the North Public Library with Deaf Advocacy Group. And that just started. We did 150 cops at that Saturday. It was an amazing opportunity to be able to serve Essex County. Then we got Passaic County. So all of that, lo and behold, signing with the cops goes a long way. And it's just simple, basic communication. Even a day and time like now, we in COVID, you know what I mean? We have wearing a mask. That's even harder for a deaf person.
Right.
Because you can't read their lips. You can't see their facial expression. And because now you got to write it down. They get an attitude and they're getting upset. And there's different ways we can do that. We have resources to be able to help you communicate with those deaf individuals. We have apps called AVA, AVA. It's a closed caption app. We have another app called Converse, where you can use an interpreter to interpret your message going back and forth to be able to do that. So during all of this, during this pandemic, I had the chance to testify at the New Jersey House of New Jersey for the Assembly and the Senator. We have a bill that's going up this month in February. This bill number is AR 35. This bill is requiring every law enforcement in the state of New Jersey to know how to communicate with sign language. Not just law enforcement, EMTs and fire are included in that. That is a big bill, and it's a bipartisan bill that's been passed on one level. Now we're getting ready to take it on to the next two levels. If it gets past that and gets to the governor's desk, this will be the first in this union of the United States to be able to have a bill like this for communication. And this was such the tone just for alone. If I ask the question, how many deaf people in the state of New Jersey? You may be giving me random numbers, but here's the numbers from the latest census, 856,000 deaf individuals in the state of New Jersey. Just imagine how important you impact someone's life, like somebody like me, or a person somebody is deaf, that they get put away, if they're lost, if they have to get to the hospital fast enough because they're deaf child or somebody's deaf. You just don't know. It would take a big load off. It's not saying they're the interpreters. It's just helping them communicate. Just like if you speak Spanish and you're law enforcement, that's a plus. Learning sign language, it's a plus. Right. If you are African American or Latino, and we need more of them to be able to be interpreters in that field. You know what I mean? So I'm a CDI, I'm a certified interpreter, so I'm in there. But we need more people like you. Lamar Towns, he's an interpreter. He's getting ready to go for his cert test. So I'm excited to see a law enforcement be able to do what he does. You know what I mean? We have one in Orange. We have a New York Port Authority police officer in New Jersey, New York. He's an interpreter too, and he signs. But we need more. And the other one is in South Jersey. So just imagine how we can bridge the gap and break the barriers of that. That is key.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm just sharing, signing with the cops. And we have an amazing organization called Deaf Advocacy Groups for the state of New Jersey. It's a state recognized advocacy group. Linda is one of our key founder sponsors. She's over our education piece of, you know what I mean? So I'm excited with her. And we're going to be bringing in Dawson in as our specialist with law enforcement with Lamar and his expertise and just bridging the gap. And we have worked with Italian Association of Law Enforcement. We have worked with the Filipino Association of Law Enforcement. We also work with the Bronze, that's with Dawson, and another organization called Bless. So I'm excited what the road is going. And this coming Monday, I believe we're doing a presentation, Linda.
Yes, for
Union County, Union City.
Union City Police Department.
Union City. So we are moving throughout the state. So I'm just excited just to be able to do this and just to be able to share with you guys. If you have any questions, you can, if you want to get more information, you can see Linda. Linda can get my information from Linda, and I can share from it. It's so good to see my colleague, Professor Hines, over there. She's a wonderful, wonderful powerhouse. That's a powerhouse woman over there. I'm just so happy. Yes, you are. You just don't know. You are a powerhouse. So it's so good to see her on it, and everybody else is on it as well. So just wanted to share that. Any questions, any concerns? Linda, back to you. I know I spoke enough.
I think Dalton has his hand raised up. Go ahead, Dalton.
I do want to go back to what Tyson was saying in the beginning. Number one, what I did recognize is that Lamar was paying somebody for this service, and Tyson took the money out of their pocket. Even though he didn't take the money, he gave a free service, so that person lost down some money. So I did pick that up. But more importantly,
Would it save them gas money going over to New York every week?
It did help. It did help him. More importantly, though, when Tyson talked about his relationship or the reason, his first incident dealing with the police,
Right.
and we talked in the previous weeks about the tools that police officers have. This is just an extra added tool that police officers would have to use. Now, in a perfect scenario, when this officer who maybe understood sign language, now Tyson is, a decent size, and he fits the description of somebody. So when this officer approaches him, he wants to handcuff him.
Right.
Tyson is trying to say, if you handcuff me in the back, I can't communicate. So it takes away the opportunity. The officer needs to understand that. However, it doesn't mean he has to handcuff Tyson in the front. What he has to understand is he can't communicate with the handcuffs in the back.
Right.
So you can handcuff him in the back for your safety, as long as you recognize that, okay, I cannot communicate with him.
Okay.
He cannot communicate with me. So it's fine. It's fine that you cuff him in the back for your safety, for his safety, because the law says you cuff him in the back. And that's okay that you do that. But if you know sign language and you understand when the person says that I'm deaf, you just recognize that I can't talk to them now. I can't communicate with them now. In order to do so, I have to do this. And when another unit pulls up and they want to go to the car to speak to him, the officer can say, he's deaf, you can't speak to him. Okay, I know sign language, but I can't speak to him either because he's cuffed in the back.
Right.
So these are just tools. And if you give people, in particular police officers, the tools that they need,
Right.
this makes communication much better. And Tyson touched on communication. Communication is key. When you can tell me that you're deaf or hard of hearing, I can say, okay, I still need to cuff you in the back. I need to look at you in your face and ask you, do you read lips? And I need to know this. But first I need to understand that you said I'm deaf.
Right.
So these communication skills are very, very important, because a lack of communication sends the wrong message.
Exactly.
So this stuff is very important. So as long as we're trying to train police officers and give them tools that they don't have, at the same time, and I know Tyson understands it and Lamar understands the importance of teaching the deaf community how important it is that they learn to communicate with the police. you're deaf or hard of hearing, snatching away from the police is not the way to go. You know, especially in a perfect scenario. You need to take the time to be able to tell the officer, I'm deaf. I can't hear. Some way to tell him that, and hopefully he understands it. But you need to do that also versus just, again, the important thing is that our conversation has never been a one-way conversation.
Correct.
It's about the police communicating with the deaf community and the deaf community communicating with the police. Because
Correct.
people say communication is very important. Well, understanding is more important. I can talk,
Mhm.
but if you can't understand me, the communication is lost. So just that was one point I want to hit on that Tyson spoke on, that this is about communication. In order to improve those relationships between the police and the community, we have to understand that. And real quick, there's something that the police have been saying for years, and it is that we are the community and the community are us.
Right.
We need the community to say the same thing.
Mm,
We are the police and the police are us.
right.
So if both sides are saying this at the same time, we're having a communication and we're talking to one another. We don't leave the onus on someone else to make the relationship. Okay, I'm responsible for my community and I expect certain things from the police. The police can say, I'm responsible to do my job, but I expect certain things from the community. But we have to work together. And I think this is just one of the programs that we've done, and it has expanded, and people have understood that the deaf community is a community that we need to deal with, and they're part of our community. And if we're not working together, nothing positive is going to come from this. So it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, there's been so many other programs. I know that growing up, there used to be programs where the police would come into the schools and they would do different programs to try to build up trust with the students. You know, some DARE programs, some other types of programs like that, where they would talk to us about different things, of how to stay on a straight and narrow kind of thing.
Right.
But I know that some programs have stopped and it wasn't the police fault, but sometimes it's the people above who make the policies and they disband certain programs so you don't have those anymore. So can you speak to some of those programs, Dalton?
Well, one issue is when you talk DARE and you talk, I think the GREAT program, these programs take manpower.
Mhm.
If you take a police department and let's say you have 5 schools, you have to take 5 officers out of your command and assign those 5 officers to a school that they go to every single day to run this program. And most departments can't afford that.
Okay.
They can't afford to take 5 guys off the road and have them assigned to a school. And when it comes to budget cuts,
Mhm.
community policing, their program, they are considered nice to have,
Right.
not have to have. So
Right.
those are the first cuts.
The want.
Yes, those are the first things that are cut because people, the executives, really don't see what they do, and because they don't see what they do, they don't see the importance of it. So you understand how important community policing is. We've had people say community policing doesn't work. Well, how do you prove that community policing doesn't work? Because there's still incidences between the police and the community. Well, we can't fix the relationship between every cop and every person. But I can tell you that when we ran community policing through our programs, none of our children that we came into contact with were involved in gangs or went to jail or had to call us for things. So we have a pattern to show that our program works.
Right.
And what you can't tell me is that community policing doesn't work, but your crime prevention program works when there are people getting shot and killed every week.
Right.
So obviously your program is not working. Okay. So we can argue that back and forth, but community policing is one of those things that if you can get in a person's ear, and you'll never know how many lives you change.
Right.
You can get into a classroom, you could talk to a group of students, you could change everyone, or you can change just one. You're never going to know. You're never going to know. But when you hear the backstory, when somebody comes to you and say, I became a cop because you came to my school when I was in 8th grade.
Mm.
But you're going to hear that 2 or 3 times. But in those 5 or 6 years, you could have talked to 2,000 students. You just won't hear the other stories. But these relationships are important to the community because people get to see police and talk to police and ask questions
Right.
from the police or of the police. Why is this done this way? And that's a very, very important part of the conversation when people can ask, why do police do this? Why do they do that? And you got to be able to react to that and explain to people this is why it's done that way, and give them an opportunity to understand, and then let them agree or disagree. But people don't have an opportunity, and the police, I think we can do a better job at communicating when we have the opportunity to. But again, it takes communication is speaking and listening. If
Right.
one person isn't listening, it doesn't get done. So
No,
that's what's important about the relationship.
exactly. Can you also speak to, like, this month is Black History Month? Can you speak to the fact that having Black men and women on the force is thinking outside the box a little bit? Because at one point they were not allowed to be on the force. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
There is a history, and some of the towns, and when you go around, you can talk Newark, because I met one of the first Black police officers in Newark. And when you have a conversation with him, the things that you hear are almost unbelievable. That if you were an African American police officer, you did not get to ride in a police car.
Mm,
You could not arrest a white person.
mm,
If a white person had to go to jail, you had to just hopefully they stayed there until a white officer showed up that could take them into headquarters, because you weren't allowed to do that. There's stories from the first Black officers in Alabama, you weren't allowed to come to headquarters. So now that you have people and it's been a long time that folks have risen to high ranking officers in the police department. And when people can see that, it's like everything else. When you see people that look like you, whatever the case may be, it becomes more achievable. So it's important that you can see, first of all, Black police officers.
mm.
Then you can see Black sergeants, Black lieutenants, Black captains, Black police chiefs. You can relate and you can say, we can do it.
Right.
And some folks may say, well, you have to fight twice as hard to get half of what they get. Okay. Okay. Just tell me what the rule is. Okay. Just tell me what the rule is, and I'll do what I need to do to get there. But it's important that people can see us in those positions of what's considered power. But it's important that people see us there to see that it is achievable, and it's a great service. I say this is one of the best jobs you could ever have. I mean, you get to do good for a living.
Exactly. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So right now we're going to open up. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and you can ask a question and be a part of the conversation.
Can I go?
Oh, yes, you may. Hi, Phil.
So first of all, Linda, did Tyson come to PS27?
Yes, he was a graduate. He came through PS27. He graduated a part of the DEF program.
Yeah, I remember when you came, Tyson, to our school, or my former school. How many years ago was that? Like 2 or 3, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it was a great presentation and really made an impact on the kids. And I remember it. So that was amazing. It's nice to see you again. I want to make a comment. I'm a therapist at Jewish Family Service in Elizabeth, and I've been there for 21 years. And I just have been thinking about this for a while. And I can't remember any time I've ever done therapy with a police officer. And I was thinking about this, and because I don't know if they have mental health services within the department, and if that works internally, or if just police are averse to coming to therapy. But I was thinking of speaking to the clinical director at the agency and seeing if we can reach out to police departments to see and offer services, because we do individual therapy, we do couples, we do families, family and children's, and it could be a great opportunity for to just educate the police departments in the area of Union County and maybe Newark too, because especially on Zoom now, about services that we provide at the agency. So I don't know if you know anything about that, Dalton, in terms of any kind of mental health services within the department.
I would say this, Phil, that more times than not, you're offered the mental health services when you're in a crisis. When you're involved in a major incident, you will go and, just to use the term that we use, you go and lay on the couch. Okay. And I'm not laying on the couch. I'm not having a conversation, because I don't have a mental health issue, Phil. There's nothing wrong with me. I was involved in an incident. I can talk to somebody about it, but there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. Okay. I'm a man. I can handle this. So do I need to lay on the couch? No. So I'm gonna go sit down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to Phil. Phil's gonna ask me some questions. I'm gonna tell Phil, no, I'm fine. I'm good with this. And I go home. And that's it. And not that's just not cops. That's most men, especially black men. Okay, we're not gonna have that conversation because we're fine. We're fine. We deal with it however we deal with it. Hopefully it's not alcohol. Hopefully it's not drugs. Hopefully it's not domestic violence. So it's not as easy as it seems in this profession, because in this profession, I'm having a conversation with Phil. Phil writes down what could be the wrong thing, and I lose my job. So that's a scary thing. That's a scary position to be in. I went to talk to Phil because I thought that I needed some help with my mental health. Phil listened to me. I said something that triggered something because he's the expert. It triggered something serious. He writes this down, and all of a sudden, my pension, my kids' college fund, my mortgage, everything is on the line. And you want me to go in this room and talk to this person and just lay out my feelings. What needs to be done, there needs to be an outlet where you can talk in this safe space where it's not going to put your pension and everything on the line.
Okay.
Because any one of us here, if I know that I'm putting that on the line, what am I saying to Phil? Phil, I'm fine.
Mhm.
I got nothing to say. So Phil, you're right. We do need those outlets, but it has to be a conversation. And
Well, that's
believe
what I
me,
was thinking of in terms of the agency doing outreach to police departments and letting them know what our services are, and also, to stress the confidentiality of therapy, because I work with all sorts of people and professions, and we are very strict in our confidentiality. We don't reveal anything to people's employers.
Right.
Other than if I was had to produce information based upon a court telling me to, it's basically how many sessions has someone attended, and whether they were cooperative, but I wouldn't reveal personal information based upon,
Right.
The ethical standards that I have to uphold and the agency has to uphold. But I'm sure, to your point, I think the outreach could help in terms of letting people know about that, and also that we work. My clientele, people I work with in therapy, are all different races, including Black men. I see.
Mhm.
The agency, since I've been there since 1999, has become increasingly diverse in terms of the populations that we serve, and I think it's become somewhat less of a stigma in terms of men. And I think it's helpful that for me as a male, that people will come to seek services at the agency. So, but I think that outreach to the communities, the police departments in the area, I don't think it could hurt.
It wouldn't hurt. And when you realize what therapy is, and we do have therapy, but it's different. We talk to each other, okay, and we have a conversation about something, and it's therapeutic. And I just went through a therapy session. Okay, I just went through a therapy session 2 minutes ago. When I was talking and I was talking to Phil, that was a therapy session. Okay, that was me expressing my feelings about mental health and the crisis or the issues. That's therapy. And once people realize how simple therapy can be, you realize it's not just laying on a couch and pouring out your feelings.
Right.
You're making a statement, or you're talking about what you like or dislike about the process, or what your problem is. So I think when people have a stigma about therapy, when you don't know what it is. I can call Sharon, Lieutenant Easton, and talk to her about something, and we can end up on the phone laughing and joking for an hour about something different. And that was my therapy, and I didn't even realize it. What even calling her for therapy? So I got some things out and laugh and joke. So the stigma related to therapy, and then the stigma related to therapy and police, we have to make sure that there is a safe space, which Phil says there is. But if I don't know that safe space exists, it doesn't work. Again, communication.
Yes.
Matt, do you mind, dear, if I just piggyback on that? Just
Go
right.
ahead.
So Dee is right, but we do now, we have within our police department, and now it's kind of becoming a little more, we do have where officers can go to someone, but I find that it's, if you see something that's going on with an officer, in terms of when I say going on, if you see, I saw an accident where a person got killed and he got ran over twice. And I didn't think I was affected until I was getting ready to go into a car wash and couldn't go in the car wash. But luckily another officer told me when I told him what I had just went through, he said, "Oh, you're suffering from PF." I forgot how to pronounce it,
Yes,
but
PTSD.
yes, he said, "You're suffering from that." And I had not a clue as to what I was going through. And he ended up recommending a psychiatrist, and I went and talked to him. And now the good thing is that they don't always have you laying on the sofa. You can sit up in the chair, right? And you can talk to him sitting in the chair. And it's what you learn breathing techniques. So some things, like Dalton says, some things aren't, you have to take a medicine, or it could be a good laugh, but you get to learn the breathing techniques. So I think it's with the police departments, if you see something, and Dalton is good for, if you see something that's going on with an officer, you can go to that officer and recommend something. And from the recommendation, we have just such a good relationship with Dr. McCurtis from New York that he would I just give his phone number to everybody. But it's just, police officer, we don't want you to think that there's something wrong with us. I don't know what we have, like Dalton always said, we have the Superman or Superwoman image we want to keep up, but it's okay. And I think that we should start to say it's okay.
exactly.
And also, from my understanding, more police officers die from suicide than from homicide.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So talking about therapy is definitely thinking outside of the box, and maybe bringing it to a forefront again, and making things plain and clear about what it is, and the services. So I think that would be a good idea, Phil, to have your agency even like reach out to the neighboring officers in the town where you are, and in the surrounding ones.
Also, people are on Zoom, so they can,
Exactly.
they can sit on their own couch.
Right. Exactly. Anybody else have anything you want to join in to the conversation? This is a conversation now.
I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on community policing. And you said something, Linda, about the history of police. Just remember that whatever those police officers went through 50 years ago, they set it up so that we won't have to go through that.
Right.
What they went through. They set everything into motion. We just got to go. We just have to make sure that we're recruiting our nephews, our cousins, the young man that's sitting around not doing anything. Get him the application, sit next to him next to the computer, and have him apply for it. Because like Dalton said, you remember this, after 25 years of service for the police department, you probably done made about $3 million. Just say that to them, and they'll rise up and believe. And it's such a great job. But our ancestors, or the police officers that came before us, set it up that we can now sit at the table like Lieutenant Price has been sitting at the table. So they've done a lot, and they held it. We have shoulders to stand on, and now we have to make it that way also. But we in community policing, even though the DARE program and the GREAT program and the LEAD program has gone away, I can only speak for Patterson. We've never stopped being in the schools. Right. We're still in the schools. We participate in the schools, and thank God for Mayor Jane. Mayor Jane got community policing a $1.3 million grant. We're able to pay for summer programs. We're able to pay for kids to work for the summer. We do after school programs. Before COVID, we did summer programs. We do Saturday programs. We come any event that you invite us to, we come with our hands full to give out. So we're out there, and matter of fact, I work Dalton to death. He might as well still stay a police officer, because I have him come and speak, and we do all the recruitments. The Patterson, and the difference what you see with the Patterson Police Department is when we did have the where our young people went out and they marched. as you notice, we got one broken window, and that didn't even come from a Pattersonian, and that was in the South Patterson area. So you know that the relationships that the Patterson Police Department is different, because nothing happened in those towns where people have relationships and when people want to rally and come out and march. You don't have the issues that you may have in other towns because of the relationships that the police departments have with their police department. It's just not by happen chance that nothing didn't happen in the Patterson Police Department.
Awesome.
And Linda, we talked before about the,
Wait, Dalton, can I stop you for 1 minute and let
absolutely,
you ask her a question, and then you
Go
can
ahead.
move on?
go ahead.
Go ahead, Alfredia.
Actually, I wanted Dalton to go ahead and respond to that so that I can piggyback off of what the lady was just talking about.
All right, go ahead, Dalton.
What I was going to pick, based on what Sharon was saying, when those are emotional deposits, and that's discussed in the book. You have to be in the community before something happens.
Right.
Once you build that relationship with people, and people can call you and ask you your opinion about this, and this is what my issue is, and you can talk to them, people have a different feeling now. And they start to understand that they can judge people, but you can't judge people all the same. But when you're having this honest dialogue with people, and people want to say, well, the police this, the police that, judging by one video.
Right.
And my argument always is, especially in the times that we're in now, if you're gonna judge every police officer based on the actions of one particular police officer, that gives the person that you call the white racist cop the opportunity to judge every black man based on the actions of one black man. So if you don't want that done, then you don't do that. Let's call what that officer did wrong. But we're not going to hold that against every police officer, because that's not how this works. Let's have a fair conversation. And 99% of the time, the person, they don't change their view, they change their tone, because they realize that's not really what I meant. I'm upset with police, I'm upset with that, but I'm not holding against all police officers. But again, the emotional deposits is what open things up so that we can have conversations like this.
Right.
But if you're not having these conversations, people don't feel safe talking to the police. And when things start to go down in your community, you understand that people are marching and fighting against a system, not necessarily me and not necessarily my police department. They're fighting against a system that they believe is unjust. Whether I believe it or not is not the point. This is what they believe, and they have a right to do that. You just don't have a right to burn things down.
Awesome.
Those emotional deposits are what should be made beforehand, and we've done that. And like Sharon said, through the community policing, that has been done on a regular basis.
Right.
Thank you, Alfreda, for letting me go.
All right, Alfredia, you're up.
All right, so actually I had two questions. One is going to be about community policing, and then another one's going to be about racial diversity within the police force. So the first question, even though some of the programs that was just mentioned by Sharon that's happening in or what's already out in Patterson, what are do you feel, what are some of the best strategies that can strengthen the relationship between the police and the minorities? And then once you mention those strategies, why do you think that those strategies will work within communities?
Well, if I can answer that first,
Yes.
What strategies that work are strategies where you're getting into the community. Again, you're talking to people, and I'm talking from the police standpoint. You're getting into the community, you're going to the church, you're having a meeting with folks, and you're asking, what can we do for you? What do you expect from us? How can we help you? And you go down that list of things. Now, mind you, once we draw this list up about what do you want from the police, my next question is, okay, what are you going to do? And trust me, when you ask that question, that's a very short list when it comes from the community. But in order for me to do these things for you, I need you to do these things for me so we can work together. It's not just a one-way street. So that's a great conversation. And those relationships, they work. They work. Those are the best strategies. And however you're going to do a community meeting, the police can have a pizza party. The police could have pizza with a cop. At the same time, The community can do the same thing. The community can say, listen, we want to have pizza with a cop, and we're going to invite the police chief and the local police officers to come and be with us. And you're going to make this an official announcement, make sure everybody knows, contact the newspaper, Facebook, everything else. And when they don't show up, you make sure that it's pointed out that you did this and nobody showed up. But trust me, they're going to want to be there. But you don't wait for the police to do it. You can do it, or go to your police department and say, this is what we want to do together to build a relationship. And trust me, they want to have those relationships.
And just to piggyback on what Dalton was saying, and the young lady, Frida, she had said something about how should, so I assume she was saying, how should white or other minority officers address, say, the African-American community, right? So what we've done now, what in the last maybe we've done it for a while, but right now we do it a little bit different, which I think is great. At first, Dalton, we would do it where when every rookie class, when every rookie class come out, we would meet at, I forgot what churches was. And it would have Lieutenant Price, myself, and some officer, and we would watch a movie. I forgot the name of the movie, right? And then we would talk about the movie. But now maybe the last 3 classes, what we do is that we actually get the men from the community. So I think the last, maybe about 2 academies ago, it was Dalton, Case, the community, and they address the new officers and they let them know what their expectations were, how they felt, and they start to have a conversation. Then this one, Dalton wasn't able to be there, and it was this was probably one of the most diverse classes I had seen in many years. And it maybe, I mean, guys, even with COVID there, it was packed, right? We had the 16, 17 officers, but when we invited the community out, they came in and they met with the officers. And by the time they left, they were listen, I'm told, when I tell you, if I told you some of the names like Moet, now Moet done been locked up for everything. Moet and those officers they exchanged numbers, so what Dalton is saying, the community got to do, if I say hi and you tell, don't speak to me, don't talk, it's vice versa. We're teaching now the new officers that's coming in, we're teaching them about your relationship, that you want to build relationships. But there's officers, sometimes we have a misconception, even me, it's an officer on our job, he tattooed from his head all the way down to his arms. I was like, oh, look at him. I'm thinking, okay, right? And that's what I'm thinking. My gosh, he has a better relationship with the community than I do. And they love him. He knows how to handle himself. And I was truly impressed with this officer. But my impression was that you're a white guy and you tattooed from the top of your head all the way down to your neck and your arms and your fingers. And that was my impression. But no, he is, he's very impressive, this officer. So the thing from mine, just to keep it short, the police department, which my chief does do now, he makes sure that every police officer meets with the community before they go out. And that's what Patterson is doing different. And I just think now we have to just train up our young men not to be so afraid of the officers, not to say hello, go over and say hi to them, invite them to come to your churches and tell the police department, I want diverse officers. I don't just want the Black officers, right? So those are the things that we need to do if we want to see the right kind of change in our community. Sorry, Dee, I didn't mean to.
Awesome.
I think Alfreda has another question.
Yes, I have one more, and that was great, Sharon, all that you said. So I want to kind of still talk about a little bit about community policing, but I want to switch gears, being one that is Black History Month, and I want to talk a little bit about, I want Dalton to talk about racial diversity in the police force. So Dalton, while we know that victims and witnesses of crimes may not approach or engage with law enforcement, if they don't perceive themselves to be responsive to their experiences or concerns. So do you believe that the racial makeup of a community's police department should be similar to the racial makeup of the community that which it serves, or is that even necessary? And that
Absolutely
was a
not.
lot. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Okay, because here we're in a time where we're talking diversity, we're
Mhm.
talking equality, and we're talking inclusion. And in simple language, what it comes down to is that the white officer can only be a cop in a white town. The black officer can only be a cop in a black town, and vice versa. So how do you get diversity when I can't go to a white town and become a cop? Or the white cop can't come to my town to be a cop? Being a cop is about being diverse in your mind. You're here to protect, I don't want to say protect and serve. It's cliche. You're here to help people.
Mhm.
And when it comes time to helping people, it really doesn't matter what race you are if you're here to help. And you may be a police officer and run into a person who's not really willing to talk to you because they don't think you understand where they're from, mentally, where they're from. You don't understand their situation. But going backwards, if the police department has built these relationships, you may not be comfortable talking to the police officer, but you're comfortable talking to your pastor who has a relationship with the police department and getting it done that way. So those relationships can be fostered, but you can't talk diversity and inclusion. And at the same time, you're saying we want, we only want black cops in the black community. Okay. And let's be honest, the black community has for most part, has a high crime rate. So you're saying, I want the black cops to deal with the high crime rate. I want the white cops to work where crime is down. How does that help me? How does it benefit me? I got to
Yeah.
go and deal with the most serious crime every day. And this officer over here, just because he's white, he gets to work over there where there's less crime. So you can't divide a police department based on race, because if you do, once you get inside of a city, you're saying that every cop in that city is patrolling an area with people that look like him. Well, what happens if I have to go to the Arabic section of the city where I never go? I don't have a relationship there. I need to go there, build a relationship with those people so they understand who I am and I understand them. And I understand what they say, what they do. I understand if I go to the mosque and it's not a serious situation, that I can't go into the mosque with my shoes on.
Right.
I have to understand that, but I learned that by going there. Now, granted, there's a call with a guy with a gun. I'm coming in and I'm wearing my shoes. Not an issue. But because you have a relationship, you understand if it's not a major issue, I have no problem taking my shoes off. If I have a hole in my sock, I may ask you to come outside so I don't have to take my shoe off. But at least we have an understanding. But this is why, to answer your question, Alfreda, you
Mhm.
need diversity in thinking. But in order to build that diversity, you cannot limit where people can go. It really defeats the purpose. And a lot of people at a much higher level have made the statement about, we want cops to be from the town that they're in.
Mhm.
And I think we need to change that mindset. If you want to be a cop in this city, we're going to change your mind and you're going to treat our people like people. I don't care what you look like and where you're from. So that's important.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So this has been a great, great conversation. I'm so excited, all of those who came out and joined us for part 3. We got one more part, and we're hoping that you join us next week, same time, same station. Dalton, any last words before we close out?
I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the candidness. And I hope the folks that are joining in are taking this information and finding ways to improve their relationship with their own police departments. We've had this conversation with cops. Sharon works very hard with trying to get the cops in the community in different situations. So, but you have to do your part. If you don't have it in your community, it's your fault.
Right.
It's your fault because you didn't try. So put forth the effort to build those things up, and you'll get a better response from the police, because now the police know what you want and what you expect from them. But let's have a conversation about how to better this.
Awesome, awesome. So one thing I did get from tonight is that we have to communicate. You have to communicate on both sides.
Linda,
Yes, go
Linda
ahead.
Helene has a question.
Oh, okay. Come on now.
Sorry. I just want to say hello to Lieutenant Easton and Dalton Price, Lieutenant Dalton Price, and congratulations, Lieutenant Price, on your new position as a school safety coordinator for Patterson Public Schools. We welcome you. We have seen both you and Lieutenant Easton through many community events involving our school and community, and we just want to say congratulations and thank you and welcome.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Linda.
Yeah, okay, you know. Dalton was retired, but he said he didn't want to he was done retiring. He wanted to do some more work. So we are congratulating you on your new where you're going right now, what you're going to be doing in the school system.
Thank you very much.
They will definitely appreciate that because you are needed. You are needed. All right.
Okay.
So, like I said, this was great. But like I said, I want to end off with a couple of things that we got from what I got out of this conversation tonight was communicate, have conversations, have real conversations, not cookie cutter conversations, things you think you want to hear, but real conversations with police officers, and not just police officers, the people in your neighbors. Find out what's going on with your neighbors. Because growing up, I knew all my neighbors and we talked. Nowadays, you go, you look around, you go in your house and you're not really talking to your neighbors. So that's building culture and building community that way as well. Also, out of the box thinking, we talked with Phil, made a suggestion about therapy. And hopefully that you will, you and your agency will do that and get in contact with the police officers. Also, we talked about what we're doing, the signing with the cops. That initiative has been really good and is really opening up a lot of doors. And, this community is being seen. So that's a great thing. And we also found out about the school programs that are still happening and you guys are still doing the work. So this is a good thing. Definitely a good thing. So next week, we're going to be talking about where do we go from here? So we've had 3 conversations so far. And like I said, we're based off of Dalton's book. So if you haven't had the book, please go get it, read it. It's a quick read and it's a nice guide to help you, even when you want to have the conversation with the police officer, with your community. It's a nice guide and it has notes in there. So as you're reading it and you're having ideas, you can write them down. So when you have the conversation, you have something to talk about. So like I said, same bat time, same bat channel next week. I look forward to seeing all of you back.
So it's the same link?
Yes, same
Sure.
one.
All right, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for
Everybody have a good
coming in.
evening.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Linda. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Linda.
Linda.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Linda.
Hey, Kelly.
Good evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.